Thank you, everyone. As she said, my name is Birgitta Wahlberg. I'm from Finland, so I'm not excellent in English, so forgive me for that, but I will try to do my best. The title for today is Making the Impossible Possible, and what I'm going to talk about is the Bill on Fundamental Animal Rights that are filed into the Constitutional Committee of the Finnish Parliament, and how we ended up with that. But before I go to the presentation and the topic, I would like to thank Animal Think Tank for the invitation to this conference, and also Liz for organizing, and her team for organizing this conference. I think it's so important for people to come together and encourage each other, whatever the topic might be. The takeaway from my presentation, I hope, is that there is no one way to protect animals. And this is just one example. And when we talk about law issues, it has to be, of course, implied in the legal system in that country. So this is just as one example, and I'm coming from a civil law country. So for us, it's the black letter, the written law, that is most important, the source of law, the binding source of law. So therefore, our approach is maybe a little bit different than what you should do here or could do here. So keeping that in mind, I would like to say a couple of words of my own background. So I defended my PhD concerning the protection and the welfare of and control of those animals we use in food production and the slaughtering of them. In other words, the legal welfare. What does the welfare of these animals mean in legal terms? At that point of time, no one was talking about animal law in Finland. So you can just imagine how strange I was. Colleagues, friends, family, everyone was saying, what are you doing? That's not law. Maybe someone even said it's impossible to make any changes to the reality of animals. During that time, I was also with animal protection authorities. I shadowed them while they were doing their control of animal welfare, animal protection. So in other words, I was with the police and regional veterinarians when they made inspections on animal transportations. I worked on different farms. And I also visited almost all the slaughterhouses on southwest coast of Finland. When I was sitting at my table reading the legislation concerning and aiming to protect animals in the best possible way, I was so proud. As I can hear in every country I visit, we are so proud of our own country's legislation. The problems are outside our own country. And I was also thinking that way when I read our at that time, Animal Protection Act. It was really strong wordings for the benefit of animals. But when I went out there beside the animals, as we all know, the reality is totally different. So I saw the black letter as ink on the paper, nothing else. And I heard the authorities over and over and over explain why they couldn't do what the law was partly asking them to do. And therefore that actually led me to the interest interest and to do the investigation and research in my PhD. On a slaughterhouse floor one day, the penny dropped down, and I understood what is obvious for, I guess, all of you, that however we do killing, it's killing. And crueltiness is crueltiness, however we try to pack it into a nice legal wording. And I decided that I will give rest of my life to make sure that becoming lawyers have education in animal law, and that we have a platform to share what animal law issues are ongoing, so we can learn from each other and we can back up for each other. And then also that if we want to see fundamental changes in the society, we need to make fundamental changes in law. And that leads to the fundamental animal rights, meaning provisions in the highest level of norms, in other words, in the Constitution. And actually the Global Journal of Animal Law, which my university then decided to start up, that was the platform. And then the Finnish Animal Rights Law Society, which I'm coming back to in a minute, that is for the fundamental animal rights issues. Before I go to this slide, I want just to say that my work is grounded in shame and pain. Shame over what my own professions is doing for animals. I think the law allows us to systematically oppress and exploit animals. It's a prerequisite for our actions. And it's shameful, I think. I don't want to add that shame on anyone, but I felt shame when I understood what the law is saying, how the necessary suffering is embedded in the law. And I felt pain for the animals and the crueltiness in that way. And that is the force making me to continue. And today, after all these years, no one is laughing anymore. No one is saying anymore it's impossible. So I encourage you to be brave and also to have the time to wait for the change to happen. Legal scholar Olivier Lebot from France, he has summarized in a really nice way, I think, why fundamental animal rights are so important. So they give reference for the interpretation of other provisions in a situation of conflict. And because of the norm hierarchy, when they are on the constitutional level, then of course where also human rights and freedoms are written, they challenge the rights and freedoms of humans. They, as fundamental rights, they limit other fundamental rights. They may repeal acts that conflict with the fundamental rights, and they incentive to act on behalf of animals, both the legislator, government, and individual persons, humans. They limit actions that are harmful, and again, they limit the legislator, government, and also persons. And they may be helpful on situations where a conscientious objection is needed. I didn't have the summary made by Olivier at the time, but I contacted my colleagues in Finland and actually in Swedish too, in Sweden too, but in the late 2015, and asked them that, would you be interested in to write down a concrete example of what fundamental animal rights would look like in the Constitution as provisions? Because I noticed when I were participating, especially in international conferences, that we often talked about fundamental animal rights or animal rights in general, or animal law issues in general, but we didn't actually go really into it. That what would they be? What would they entail? So I wanted to make a concrete tool to the legislators in Finland, and therefore I contacted my colleagues and asked if they could join me. And during 2016 and 17, we made the proposal or wrote the proposal. We were in contact with natural scientists, social scientists, different people that we knew that have an understanding of what different kind of animals are. And when we had the first chapter ready, or the first proposal ready, we sent it to constitutional law experts globally and wanted to have feedback. And when we got the feedback, we worked a little bit more on the proposal. We wanted to write it as a bill, so, and in legal terms, so that it would be a good tool for the legislator. At that point of time, in the beginning, what we wanted to do, so the aim was to first of all define what the sentient beings, the sentience in the Treaty of the European Union, Article 13, which is saying that animals are sentient beings. What does that mean in Finland? And we wanted also to concretize the substance of fundamental rights. So what is fundamental rights in the constitutional level? So we are also thinking about how it would be fitting into the Finnish constitution. And we also wanted to lay down the principle of precaution, necessity, and proportionality within the context of fundamental animal rights. And in 2017, the end of 2017, when the proposal were, so to say, ready, we were thinking, we were all legal scholars and lawyers, what shall we do now? I was the only one who had, because I worked with an animal rights NGO in Sweden sometime and had quite a lot contact with the MPs at that time, but I was the only one who had even talked to MPs, to be really honest. So we were thinking, what shall we do now? And we decided on the Valentine's Day in 2018 to establish the Finnish Animal Rights Law Society for the campaigning and lobbying of the proposal. I don't know why. Is it that we were all legal scholars and lawyers, or was there some kind of clarity in our proposal? But we thought that we need to be really active in the society to get our message to go through. But we didn't. The media somehow picked it up. And what I have noticed is that generally people have it's really easy for them to understand why fundamental animal rights is so important to recognize. Then, of course, when we take the next step and the mirror turns around to people themselves and they realize that, oh, I need to change, then it's more difficult. But to understand the meaning of fundamental animal rights, it was really easy for people to understand why. And there was a lot of goodwill. We want to have this change. So then the next step was, sorry, now I took too many, that one of the, why does it go back? Okay, let's try again. Nothing is happening? No. Okay. So in 2022, a Finnish MP, Mike Kivelä from, surprise, surprise, left wing, wanted to make a proposal or file a proposal to the parliament, and she used our proposal as it was. We knew already when she did this that it will not be a success story because there was a parliamentary election coming in April 2023. But with that bill, it got some kind of attention, even more in the media. I think she did it because she wanted to be re-elected, but nevertheless, she also did a good case for us and for the animals. So then in February 2023, we decided to just have a taste of what the Finnish people are thinking about the proposal. So we made a citizens initiative, and we needed to collect during 6 months 50,000 signatures. We collected almost 53,000, which I have to say was a surprise for me. I didn't think or thought, I didn't say it at the time, of course not, because I was at that time the president for the Finnish Animal Rights Society, so I didn't want to be negative or pessimistic, but inside myself I was thinking it cannot be successful the first time, and fundamental changes in the constitution, even if people generally understand it, to make a signature under such a initiative, it's too much, I was thinking. But it wasn't. So we filed the initiative to the parliament and started to even more actively campaigning, acting and lobbying for the proposal. So we have met MPs, I think more than 60 nowadays. We always go and meet in person or over Zoom, and we are always two. Because we also meet with farmers and farmer NGOs and farmer organizations, with hunters, with people who are oppressing or exploiting animals. And sometimes it's really demanding to keep yourself focused and not be angry, or not at least showing that you are angry, or even that they go into your skin, to say it clear. So therefore we always go to, and also to learn from each other. So there is usually a senior and a junior in those settings. So young people have a possibility to learn from older one. We have been a lot in TV. Here is a picture. We were interviewed in morning TV. This is Elisa Aaltola. Maybe some of you know her. She is a quite well known philosopher. And we were interviewed in morning TV about what this could mean for pets, for dogs and cats. And the journalist make a really bad and stupid statement. And I call this picture really, because both of us was like, at the same time, I always say I'm so happy when they do those statements, because it's like, okay, here is rope, hang yourself, because it's so easy to take it back to the proposal and the principle of necessity. Almost everything go to explain and to clarify with the principle of necessity. So at the same time where you are really, it's a good thing when it happens. Shortly about the content in the proposal, it's written, as I said, in a form of a bill. It's included by 5 sections, and there is several subsections under each. The 2 first ones, they are general sections on protection of animals, and they are also laying down the principles of precaution, necessity, and proportionality. And the sections 3, 4, and 5, as you can see, the section 4 is on fundamental rights of animals dependent on human care. We didn't want to use the word domestication or domesticated, because we thought that that is already, as an outgoing point, anthropocentric. But we wanted to have a division between animals living in and of the nature and what we call wild animals, and then those who are dependent on humans. The thinking behind that is that maybe we humans need to have an interaction and life together with some animals for our capacity to have empathy. And it can be fruitful and it can be important for both parts, but it cannot rely on the reality we are, or the actions we are doing today. One also important thing is that the 3, 4, and 5 sections, the content, it's mainly already law in force, because it's most of the content, it's not everything, because we have also the right to life, and that is not part of the Animal Welfare Act. But otherwise, everything is already law, but it's law on ordinary law level. So therefore, the human freedoms and rights goes over, as you know, in every situation almost. So we wanted to uplift it on the constitutional level to give it the legal power needed for fundamental changes. Surprise, surprise, the most difficult section to work on was prohibition on breeding, even if it's already, the content is law on ordinary law level. But it divided the group of the team, so to say, into, there was those who were saying all breeding should be prohibited, and those who were saying no, it can be for the benefit for the animal to be bred. Okay, but that was interesting. The other interesting thing, and which taught me a lot, was that every meeting, almost every meeting we had, and there was plenty of them, I thought that all of us was on the same page, so to say. I mean, we knew the task. Everyone was there for free will, wanted to draft on the content on fundamental animal rights. And even so, I needed to remind my colleagues every meeting that we are doing this for the animals and with our best understanding of the law and how animals should be protected from systematic exploitation and oppression by humans. And what I taught, or what I learned, was that even if we think that we are on the same page, there is so much fear inside us to be unrealistic or be in a light of shame in front of our colleagues and generally in the society. So it was really demanding to keep everyone on track and every time take it back to the animals. So what do we know about animals today? We know so much about their sentience, their cognitions. We know so much, and to keep that in front of us and always take it back to the animals, it was the most difficult thing for me as the leader of the team. And it was a surprise for me. Actually, when this section was ready, one of the team members said, I can't continue in this group, because he was thinking that is so unrealistic, the content in this, even if it's a law in force, but on a constitutional level, so that he met his wall, so to say, what he could take in, and he didn't want to continue in the group after that. And that's, I mean, we are different, and where the boundaries goes, it's personal choices. Okay, so you can find the whole proposal and the subsections and the explanation, the rationale to the content at our web page. It's under reconstruction, so there will be changes soon, but at least now you can. And then there is also an English web page, Animals Turn. It's the same content, but there is also interviews with constitutional court expert and Saskia Stucki. You might know Saskia Stucki as a legal theorist. It's part of student work I had to do when I studied animal law at Lewis and Clark Law School. So therefore it's there. I have also written about the topic in 2 articles. If you want to, you can look into that. At the same time, I want to say that we have an open access program called AniLex at the Open University at Åbo Academy, which is open for everyone. You don't need to have a law degree. There is totally 10 animal law courses, and it's online and in English. So, and part of that course is also to go deeper into the fundamental animal rights, what it can entail in different countries. Depending on how one calculates, one can already now see provisions on constitutional level, single provisions in 11 to 23 countries. So this is not actually so exceptional. The exceptional part of this is that it's like a rights catalog as human rights are. And we wanted to write it as a catalog so it can be challenging human rights and freedoms. So the first section in the proposal, as I said, it's an general provision stating that sentient animals are individuals whose fundamental rights and welfare requirements must be fully respected by humans. All animals shall be presumed to be sentient unless otherwise can be determined, the principle of precaution. Personally, I think that the second subsection is maybe the most important part of the proposal, stating that the interest and individual needs of animals must be taken into account in all private and public activities that have significant impact on the living conditions or chances to survive. Because that is forcing the legislator, the government, and also individuals in a situation of conflict to argue why, and taking into account the substantive sections 3, 4, and 5 in the proposal, I think that together with this subsection, it will lead over time that there is no justifications for the systematic exploitation of animals. So what we do here is that we create a legal status for animals without stating that they are persons or subjects, or that they have subjectivity or personhood, which is, as you might know, a difficult thing for lawyers to accept that there could be some other persons than humans and organizations. So we don't go there, but we create the same situation without the wordings of subjectivity or personhood. Animals have legal standing, so there cannot be any justice if you don't have access to justice. And therefore we are proposing that animals have legal standing, and of course there have to be someone that can legally represent the animal at the authorities or courts, and that should be specified in the law. One of the members who worked with the proposal from the beginning, she has written an article on how it could be in the Finnish law, how it could be created on the ordinary law level. And in line with section 20 in the Finnish constitution, which is on the responsibility over the environment, the last subsection in this first paragraph states that the rights, welfare, and protection of animals is the responsibility of everyone. The second general section in the proposal, it's actually mostly directed to the authorities to safeguard the fundamental rights of animals. But it's also laying down the principle of necessity and the principle of proportionality. So the grounds for the restrictions must be acceptable and necessary for an important social reason. That is the principle of proportionality in a nutshell. What I think it's the second most important thing in the proposal is the principle of necessity. As I said, one can almost explain or argue anything on behalf of animals with that. And the principle of necessity means that that there has to be, it's linked with the right to life. And you cannot take a life or restrict a life if it's not necessary for human survival, for the safeguarding of humans or animals, other animals' fundamental rights or protection, or a species rights or protection. And there is no other means to do that. So it forces, first of all, it stops what we, it forces us to stop in front of what we are doing to animals, and then to argue, justify what we are doing. And together with the content in the proposal, I cannot find a way how we could justify the systematic exploitation and oppression of animals. There might be a way, but I can't find it. And the media is often asking me, but does this mean then that we can't hunt, we can't have food production? We need to change. And I always say, yes. Why should we recognize fundamental animal rights if there wouldn't be any need for change? We have to change, because how we use and exploit and oppress animals today, as you know, it's so interlinked with climate crisis, biodiversity losses, human health issues, pandemics, zoonosis. So it's not only about the suffering and oppression of animals, it's about our all of us future and coming generations. So it's a huge question, and we need to change. And this is helping, this is a tool for the society to make those changes. I'm always surprised over how surprised people are when I say to MPs or people I meet or media, when I say, yes, of course, it means that we have to change. I guess it's because we are so used to justify what we are doing and to make the laws accordingly, not to force the change. And as I said, the sections 3, 4, and 5, they are on the wild animals and the animals of need of human care and breeding. I will not go deeply into it, but I just want to say that the other side of the coin, the right to life, is that animals have the right to receive help if the animal is sick, injured, or otherwise in a helpless state. It's the animal's right to be euthanized or killed. A right that it's not part of human life, but we think that in such a situations it's for the benefit to the animals. And the same right applies for the animals that are in need or dependent on human care. And all of these subsections, both concerning wild animals' fundamental rights and those dependent on human care, as I said, it's already part of the Animal Welfare Act in force in Finland. So it's not anything new, actually. The new thing is that it's on the highest level of norms. Not the right to life, though. The breeding section, I don't know why it's so slow. Thank you. But it's slow. It takes time off the speech, but the breeding, this is exactly how it is also in the Animal Welfare Act in force, and also in the Animal Protection Act that was in force before the new Animal Welfare Act that came in force January 2024. So to summarize everything, to have the fundamental rights of animals recognized on the level of the Constitution, it means that acts and provisions on a lower level, on an ordinary law level, or even under the Act, must safeguard the animals' rights. So it's binding for the legislator. And the public authorities must safeguard the rights both in the implementation, interpretation, and application of the law. In other words, it's binding for the public authorities, meaning in this context, the animal protection authorities, which we have on different level of the administration, and inclusive the courts, of course. And thirdly, it's the responsibility for everyone. So it's also binding the individual. And that leads us also then to criminal law cases. So we can access the criminal law issues by that. And the principles of precaution, necessity, and proportionality limits the use of animals for human purposes. In other words, it promotes respectful coexistence between humans and other animals, which I think we need more than ever these days. And maybe most importantly, it's changing the animal's legal status, and at least it's more strong in relation to the legal status of humans. So, for example, through the establishment of standing, giving animals the access to justice. So the takeaway from my presentation, as I said in the beginning, I hope that this can give some new ideas for you to find a way how to make fundamental changes in the UK or in whatever country you are living, and never think that it would be impossible. It's possible when we want to have the changes. What I would want to see is that we could agree on that it's the fundamental changes we need to support each other on, because otherwise as we see in the movement, we are working with different important issues, but they are not making the fundamental changes necessary. So open the gate for those who think that it's impossible and make things possible, and support. I hope that we could support each other better for the benefit for the animals. Thank you so much.
Anyone have any questions? Okay.
Yeah, I'm getting up a screenshot that I took of one of the slides. So I don't know if this is going to be a bit of a left field question, but it was about the point 5, the prohibition on breeding. And I just wanted to read it out. So it goes, it is prohibited to breed animals in such a way that breeding causes physical or psychological harm to the animal or its offspring, or prevents the offspring from behaving. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's got it up there. So I wondered if you could expand on like the discussions that were happening around this one, because I can see people taking this in two different ways. Some people would say physical or psychological harm beyond what is expected in the average animal's life or whatever, because as I see it anyway, in reality, every animal is, just by existing, is going to come to physical and psychological harm, like all of us do as well. And so I wondered, would this not have to conclude in the cessation of any breeding of animals?
That's actually maybe the end goal, to stop the breeding. In the rationale to this section, the motivation for the section goes, if I remember it exactly, that the physical and physiological harm meant when we know that we breed animals, for example, with the, what do you call them, flat faces, or too small skulls because we think they are pretty or cute or whatever we think. This would directly ban that kind of breeding. And even though if it would have such an impact of the offspring, or if the breeding would lead to that, we know some of the species, they have, for example, difficulties to give birth because of our breeding of their anatomy. So that kind would be prohibited. What the other side said, that the breeding can lead to existing animals breeding programs that make the offsprings to be healthier and happier. And that in the end of the day, when we make these changes, it would ban breeding totally. Personal, and this is only personal opinion, I don't think so. I think we need to have a ban on breeding if we want to end breeding. I think this section is a typical example of, we want to do something, but we are not ready to say it out loud, that this is actually what we want to see. So this is some kind of right direction, but not there yet. And at least I think concerning those animals we are using in food production, this have a huge impact. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your wonderful and inspiring presentation. I learned a lot. I'm not going to highlight the wonderful things that you are doing, because I think it's very wise the way you are doing the legal strategy, not like only discussing personhood, but discussing rights. But my only comment would be about urban or liminal animals, those animals that are not properly wild or not properly dependent on us, or at least not in particular from some human being. And what about also another, not a principle, but I would say it condition as roles speak about justice conditions, because if we are going to include all sentient animals, and maybe some invertebrates are sentient, but it's not the same relationship we have with an ant. We may not see, and we with no will kill than killing an animal that it's, I don't know, domesticated and it's here because of us. So that would be the two concerns. What about urban animals, and what about conditions of justice to interpret these rights? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question, and it's so I almost always get those questions. So first of all, concerning those animals that are not independent directly of human care, they are kept as wild animals. So if an animal need human care in some way by some humans, it doesn't need to be the same one all the time, but need human care, then it's under the fourth section. I would say, for example, rats belongs here, because even if we would feed rats in nature by garbage, maybe we do actually, but it would never fit in under section 4. But for example, animals, wild animals that need health care for a moment and then they are released, during the health care they are under section 4. But immediately when they are out in the nature and they live in and from the nature, then they fit in here. And we have also, concerning wild animals, we have a prohibition or a ban in the Animal Welfare Act that it's forbidden to take wild animals in human care. Your second question was about... Yeah, so it was the ant question, yes. The science, natural science, is of course giving us new information all the time, where the line goes between sentience and not sentient beings. So where to draw the line, it's living all the time. But at least now we know that all those animals we are oppressing and exploiting are sentient beings. So let's begin with that. And for example, ants, I get a question, oh, I can't kill a ant or insect anymore, mosquito anymore. Principle of necessity. It's useful to argue that. Okay, if it's for your own safety or whatever, maybe that's not the main question we need to deal with. We can take the mosquitoes later. Let's talk about the animals in the food production or our what we call companion animals. So to take the discussion always back, and I think it's in human nature that when we present something new, it's easier to find how it doesn't work, instead of to focus on, okay, how shall we make this to work for the animals and make the fundamental changes in the society. So also to bring that kind of discussions back to the possibilities instead of the impossibilities or difficult issues. I think if we say that we are the most clever species on the globe, then we find ways how we get this work for the benefit of the animals and the relation between humans and animals, other animals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're out of time. If you have any questions, please speak to Brigitte afterwards. Thank you very much, everyone. Let's give a round of applause.